It started with a simple plate of food, the kind of gesture most people would forget by morning. But for Maya Johnson, it became the first step into a story that would change everything she thought she knew about kindness, family, and the secret lives of neighbors. Maya was 26, working 2 jobs in a small Midwestern town, days at a bookstore, nights at a diner. She lived alone in a narrow apartment that sat right beside a weathered old house with faded paint and a sagging porch. That house belonged to Mr. Williams, a man well into his 70s who rarely came outside. Most days, his curtains stayed drawn, his yard overgrown, his presence felt only in the faint sound of a television murmuring through the thin walls. The first time Maya brought him food, it wasn't planned. She had made chicken stew and cornbread, and as she looked at the leftovers cooling on her counter, she thought of the man next door who never seemed to have company. She knocked nervously, unsure if she was overstepping. When the door opened, she saw him, thin frame, gray hair falling across his forehead, eyes that looked tired in a way no rest could fix. "Good evening," Maya said softly. "I cooked too much. Would you like a plate?" For a moment, he just stared, as if he hadn't heard words like that in years. Then his lips curled into a fragile smile. "That's very kind of you. Thank you." From that night forward, it became routine. Each evening after work, no matter how late, Maya carried over a plate. Sometimes it was simple spaghetti, sometimes roasted chicken, sometimes recipes her grandmother used to make. At first, Mr. Williams kept the conversations short, just a nod, a thank you, and a quiet retreat into his home. But little by little, his words began to stretch further. He told her about his wife who had passed away, about how he used to work with his hands building furniture, about how the silence in his house grew heavier with every passing year. Maya listened, drawn to the warmth beneath his weathered voice. She began staying longer, sitting at his small kitchen table while he ate. The light was dim, the furniture worn, but in those moments, something alive filled the room again. Not everyone understood. At the diner, a coworker teased her. "You've got enough on your plate, Maya. Why feed someone else?" She only smiled, wiping down the counter. Because no one should have to eat alone every night. What started as charity was becoming something deeper, a bond that neither of them could have predicted. Winter arrived, and with it came longer nights, colder winds, and more meals shared at Mr. Williams's table. Maya's presence grew into a ritual he began to rely on. He would ask about her day at the bookstore, tease her gently about the customers at the diner, and sometimes, when he felt brave, talk about his own past. He confessed that he used to be a carpenter. His hands, once strong and calloused, had built tables and chairs for neighbors around town. He pointed to the kitchen chair Maya sat on. "Made that one when I was 30. Wood's still good, though I'm not." He chuckled, though the sound was tinged with sadness. Maya admired the craftsmanship, running her fingers along the smooth edges. "You've built things that last," she said. "Not many people can say that." He gave her a look she didn't quite understand, half pride, half longing. "I tried to build more than furniture. I tried to build a family." That was the first time he mentioned his son. The words came slowly, like he was afraid of saying too much. His son had left years ago, chasing ambition far from their small town. "He's done well," Mr. Williams murmured, almost to himself. "Made a name I can hardly recognize anymore." His eyes drifted to a photograph on the mantel, a younger man in a suit, confident smile, standing in front of a tall building. "Does he visit often?" Maya asked gently. Mr. Williams shook his head. "He's busy. Too busy. Calls come rarely, and when they do, they sound more like obligations than conversations. But he's my boy. Always will be." Maya felt a tug in her chest. She didn't press further, but the weight of his loneliness lingered in her heart. She thought of her own grandfather, who had passed when she was a child, and how his absence still left a quiet space in her life. Maybe that was why she couldn't ignore Mr. Williams's empty kitchen. As weeks passed, their bond deepened. Maya brought not just food but blankets, groceries, even small plants to brighten the windowsill. Sometimes she left handwritten notes, "See you tomorrow. Take care of yourself." Each time, Mr. Williams would smile like it was the first kindness he'd seen in years. But there were nights when the sadness returned. He would sit in silence, staring at the photograph of his son, and Maya knew there were words he couldn't bring himself to say. One evening, after she set down a plate of roasted chicken, she asked, "Do you think he'll come back?" Mr. Williams sighed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know. But I hope. Every father hopes." Maya placed her hand gently over his. She didn't know his son, but she knew this truth: no one deserved to be forgotten by the people they loved most. By early spring, Maya had become more than a neighbor. She was a companion, a listener, a reason for Mr. Williams to smile. The once quiet house felt less like a tomb and more like a home. Yet the shadow of his absent son lingered over every meal. Maya could see it in the way his gaze drifted to that framed photo, in the pauses that hung heavy when he spoke of family. One Friday night, after finishing her shift at the diner, Maya carried a warm plate of beef stew and cornbread across the walkway. But when she reached the porch, something was different. A sleek black car with tinted windows sat at the curb, its polished frame gleaming under the streetlight. It didn't belong in their modest neighborhood. Her steps slowed. From inside the house, she heard voices, one familiar and frail, the other sharp, commanding, filled with impatience. She knocked softly, and the door opened. There stood a man in his late 30s, tall, clean-shaven, wearing a tailored suit that seemed too formal for the setting. His watch gleamed, and his shoes looked like they'd never touched dirt. His eyes landed on her with curiosity, narrowing slightly. Mr. Williams's voice trembled. "Maya, this is my son. Lucas." Maya blinked, her heart racing. She knew that name. She had read it in headlines, seen it on magazine covers at the bookstore. Lucas Williams, the founder of a billion-dollar tech company, a man the business world hailed as a visionary. She had never imagined the man in those glossy articles was the son of the lonely neighbor she'd been feeding every night. Lucas studied her. "So you're the one bringing food to my father?" His tone wasn't unkind, but it carried a weight of disbelief. "Yes," Maya said simply, holding out the plate. "I just didn't want him eating alone." Lucas accepted the dish but didn't eat. He looked at his father, then back at Maya. "That's unusual. Most people don't give their time so freely." Maya held his gaze. "Sometimes people need more than food. They need to know someone cares." The silence that followed was thick. Mr. Williams shifted uncomfortably, glancing between them. Lucas finally sat down at the kitchen table, but his posture was stiff, as if the chair were foreign to him. His father looked smaller beside him, nervous under the weight of his presence. As they ate, Lucas asked questions, not about his father's health or happiness, but about logistics, routines, whether bills were paid. Maya listened quietly, frustration simmering inside her. She wanted to ask him why he had stayed away so long, why he only showed up now in a luxury car after years of silence. But she bit her tongue, watching the way Mr. Williams's eyes lingered on his son with equal parts pride and sorrow. That night, when Maya finally left, she felt unsettled. For the first time since she had begun this routine, she wasn't sure what her role was anymore. The days after Lucas's arrival felt different. His sleek car became a fixture on the street, its presence turning curious heads in the neighborhood. Some evenings, Maya arrived with her usual meal only to find Lucas already there, sitting stiffly at the table across from his father. Other nights, they crossed paths on the porch, offering each other polite but cautious nods. At first, the visits were awkward. Lucas spoke like a man conducting business, asking about medication schedules, utilities, and doctor appointments. Mr. Williams answered quietly, grateful but uneasy, as if afraid his son's attention might vanish if he said the wrong thing. Maya sensed the tension and often filled the silence with stories, lightening the mood with anecdotes from her long shifts at the diner. Slowly, cracks began to form in Lucas's armor. One evening, he brought a box of old photo albums. He placed them on the table, his movements stiff, almost embarrassed. Found these in storage. Thought maybe Dad would want them. Mr. Williams's eyes lit up as he opened the first album. The pages revealed snapshots of years long past, Lucas as a child riding a tricycle, his late mother in a floral dress, family picnics where laughter seemed frozen in time. The old man's voice softened as he told stories behind each picture, his wrinkled hand trembling as he touched the faces. Lucas listened, and for once, his expression carried something other than detachment. Maya sat quietly, watching. She realized she was witnessing a bridge being rebuilt plank by plank, though neither father nor son knew how fragile it still was. But not everything came easily. One night, Lucas's phone buzzed with urgent calls. He stepped outside, his voice sharp, slicing through the quiet street. I said close the deal. No excuses. When he returned, his father looked at him with tired eyes. Son, Mr. Williams said gently, if all that success can't give you peace at this table, what's the use of it? Lucas froze, his father's words cutting deeper than any boardroom confrontation. Maya held her breath, unsure if he would lash out or retreat. Instead, he sat down heavily, running a hand through his neatly combed hair. I don't know anymore, Dad, he admitted, voice low. In that moment, Maya saw him not as the billionaire in glossy magazines but as a son struggling to remember how to be present. The weeks that followed brought more evenings like that. Lucas canceled a few trips, skipped a meeting or two, and began helping with small things, grocery runs, fixing the leaky faucet, even clumsily chopping vegetables under Maya's guidance. The once lonely kitchen slowly filled with laughter, frustration, and the sound of life returning. And yet, beneath the fragile peace, Maya felt a storm brewing. Summer crept in, heavy and warm, but inside the Williams house, the air grew fragile. Maya noticed it first, the way Mr. Williams's steps slowed, the way his hands trembled when he tried to lift a fork. He waved it off as, just old bones, but Maya saw the truth. His body was failing him. One night, after she helped him to bed, she turned to Lucas. He needs more care than we can give alone. We should take him to a doctor. Lucas didn't argue. For once, there was no talk of schedules or meetings. He drove them to the hospital that same night, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the wheel like he could control fate itself. The doctor's words were gentle but heavy, Mr. Williams's heart was weak, his time limited. He would need rest, comfort, and above all, presence. Back at home, Lucas sat beside his father's bed, his polished image crumbling. I should have been here sooner, he whispered, his voice breaking. All the money in the world, and I couldn't give you what mattered. Mr. Williams reached for his son's hand, his grip frail but steady. You're here now. That's enough. From that day forward, Lucas was no longer the visitor in a suit. He became a son again. He cooked with Maya, though he burned more meals than he perfected. He sat with his father in the evenings, listening to old stories he'd once been too busy to hear. Sometimes he and Maya would laugh quietly at the way Mr. Williams teased them both, his humor sharper than his health. But the decline couldn't be stopped. On a quiet evening in late July, Mr. Williams called them to his side. His breath was shallow, his eyes glassy but filled with warmth. He took both their hands and whispered, "Don't let this end when I'm gone. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up. Promise me you'll keep showing up for each other." Maya's throat tightened. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Lucas, his chest heaving, whispered, "I promise, Dad." Those were his last words. The funeral came a week later. Neighbors gathered, speaking in hushed tones about the quiet man who had once built their chairs, their tables, their homes. Lucas stood apart at first, the weight of regret heavy on his shoulders, until Maya gently guided him forward. Together, they carried the memory of the man who had taught them both that love was measured not in wealth or achievement, but in presence. In the weeks that followed, Lucas knocked on Maya's door often, not with polished speeches or business talk, but with simple words, "Want to share dinner?" And each time, Maya smiled, because she knew Mr. Williams's legacy was alive in those small, steady acts of showing up.